Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to a silence so complete that it feels intentional, if the world itself has paused and is waiting for something to happen. You try to move your body, but you quickly realize you can't. Your chest feels heavy, your breathing shallow, and your muscles refuse to respond, no matter how hard you try to command them. And then you notice it. In the corner of your room stands a figure darker than the darkness around it, a shape that shouldn't exist because it is somehow more solid than shadow, yet less real than a person. It is tall, it is perfectly still, and it is wearing a hat. I experienced this myself, and what happened afterwards was not something I can comfortably dismiss as a nightmare. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well tonight. What I'm about to tell you completely changed the way I understand reality. This happened shortly after I moved to Columbus, Ohio, a quiet Midwestern city in the United States that should have felt ordinary and safe. I am not exaggerating any part of this story. In fact, the experience affected me deeply enough that I eventually chose to leave the apartment entirely because I genuinely believed staying there would cost me my sanity. I have always been a skeptical person. I never believed the kinds of paranormal stories people share online, especially those involving detailed apparitions or dramatic encounters. They always felt theatrical and predictable to me, more like stories designed to entertain than events that actually happened. I preferred logical explanations. Psychology, optical misinterpretation, the human brain attempting to make sense of incomplete sensory input while caught between sleep and wakefulness. My name is Daniel Harper, and at the time this occurred, I had just relocated to Columbus for a new job opportunity. Columbus is not overwhelming like New York, nor glamorous like Los Angeles. It exists in a comfortable middle ground, large enough to disappear into, yet quiet enough that nighttime carries a noticeable stillness. The neighborhood consisted mostly of aging brick buildings, and I rented a small apartment near a train line within walking distance of my workplace. Sleep paralysis was not unfamiliar to me. I had experienced it several times during college, enough to understand how convincingly the brain can manufacture sensory experiences, moving shadows, amplified sounds, and the unsettling sensation that something is present when nothing actually is. Because of that, when the events began, I repeatedly reassured myself that it was simply my mind misfiring, nothing more than neurological noise. At least that was what I tried to believe. But the occurrences did not behave like normal sleep paralysis. They repeated, consistently. And most disturbing of all, the figure never changed. Each night it appeared identical to the previous one, positioned in the same place, holding the same posture, almost as if it was not being created by my brain, but instead waiting for me to notice it again. My rational explanations slowly began to erode. I attempted to analyze every detail scientifically, but the more I examined it, the less it resembled a medical or psychological phenomenon. The fear did not come from what I saw. It came from the realization that the experience seemed structured, intentional, almost interactive. The first occurrence happened approximately 3 weeks after I had settled into the apartment. The building was a 2-story red brick structure built sometime in the 1980s. Its main hallway was unusually long and covered with thick, worn carpeting that absorbed footsteps so completely that nighttime felt unnaturally empty, almost as though sound itself struggled to exist there. My unit was on the 2nd floor. From my bedroom window, I could see a flickering street lamp and occasionally hear a train passing roughly a block away, its distant rumble becoming part of the background atmosphere I gradually accepted as normal. The apartment itself was small, suitable for one occupant, practical rather than comfortable, the kind of place intended for temporary living rather than emotional attachment. The first several nights felt entirely normal. I unpacked my belongings, adjusted to my new routine, and slowly acclimated to the ambient noises of the building, including the soft metallic clicking of the central heating system activating late at night. Nothing about the environment suggested anything unusual.
Nothing suggested I was being watched. Not yet. Then the first night finally came. I woke up at around 3 a.m. without any clear reason. There was no loud noise, no nightmare pulling me out of sleep. I simply became conscious, as if some automatic switch inside my mind had been pressed. I lay on my back, staring into the dark ceiling, letting my eyes slowly adjust while trying to fall asleep again, because I knew I had work in the morning. That was when I noticed something unusual in the corner of the room near my bedroom door. At first, my brain immediately assumed it was just my winter jacket hanging on a coat hook. I didn't feel afraid at all. I remember thinking, "Oh, I forgot to put that away last night." Everything felt ordinary, completely mundane. So I blinked a few times to clear my vision from the heaviness of sleep. After several blinks, my focus sharpened. I realized something was wrong. I didn't own a coat hook in that corner, and the shape I was looking at wasn't fabric. It was far more solid, more defined, and most disturbingly, it reflected no light whatsoever, as if it were a small void absorbing every bit of illumination, even the faint glow leaking through the curtains. In that instant, I understood. There was someone, or rather something, standing there. The figure was perfectly still. No breathing, no movement, no shifting weight. It wasn't a normal person, but it also wasn't just a shadow caused by darkness. It looked darker than the darkness of the room itself, like a precise cutout taken directly from the night and placed against my pale bedroom wall. It was tall, unnaturally tall, and it had one detail that completely halted my logic. It was wearing a hat, a wide-brimmed hat, something resembling a fedora, clearly defined in shape and proportion. My mind fixated on that detail because panic was trying to anchor itself to reason. Why would a shadow have clothing? That specificity made the terror feel real in a way that raw darkness never could. I tried to move. I couldn't. Sleep paralysis. That was my immediate conclusion, and at least having a medical term gave me some comfort. I attempted to move my fingers, my legs, anything, but my body was locked. My breathing grew short and fast, yet I forced myself to stay calm because past experience taught me it usually lasted only seconds before releasing me. But this time it didn't end, and worse, the figure reacted.
It didn't step forward. It didn't shift position. Yet the atmosphere in the room changed in a way impossible to ignore. I knew it was aware I was awake. I was looking at it, and it was looking back, even though there were no visible eyes beneath the shadow of that hat. You don't see its eyes, but you know it sees you. The most horrifying part wasn't the sudden fear. It was the patience, the overwhelming certainty that it was observing me calmly, as though it possessed unlimited time and was waiting for a moment it had already chosen, a moment I could not understand. And as I lay there unable to move, I felt that whatever would happen next would not be decided by me. I stared at the figure for what felt like an impossibly long time. In reality, it may have only been a few minutes, but in that moment it stretched into something unbearable, like time itself had slowed just to force me to remain aware of it. Then, very slowly, it made a small movement. It leaned forward, only slightly, barely enough to qualify as motion, yet unmistakably deliberate, as if it were measuring the distance between us, confirming that I was fully conscious and capable of understanding its presence. That tiny movement sent a shock of terror through my entire body. That was the moment I truly panicked. I forced every bit of strength I had into breaking the paralysis. I groaned, strained, and with a violent effort managed to pull my upper body upright into a sitting position. Instantly, I turned toward the corner where it stood. The corner was empty. No figure, no hat, just the plain wall and the curtain gently shifting from the night air. I didn't sleep again that night. I spent the remaining hours until sunrise sitting on my living room couch holding a glass of cold water, repeatedly convincing myself it had only been an unusually intense nightmare brought on by moving stress in a disrupted sleep schedule. I was almost completely certain it was a dream, until the next night came. I returned to the bedroom already carrying a quiet anxiety I couldn't ignore, and that feeling proved justified. At exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke again. This time, I felt fear before even opening my eyes. Some instinct screamed that it would be there. I slowly turned toward the corner. It was. Same place, same height, same hat.
Standing rigid and silent, Elias Salam, though it had never left, only waited for me to wake so it could resume watching. After the fourth night, something changed. The appearances no longer felt random. They felt scheduled. Like an appointment I was required to attend every night, and it was the one patiently waiting for me to arrive at consciousness. I never saw Elias Salam at walk. I never saw Elias Salam at enter. It didn't come through the door or the window. It was always, and this disturbed me the most, already there, like a piece of furniture that only existed at a certain hour. It wasn't behaving like a ghost interacting with the world. It felt more like a phenomenon, a fixed point of darkness capable of existing inside physical space. And its presence carried pressure. One night, out of frustration and a very foolish curiosity, I decided to try something. I pretended to be asleep. I closed my eyes tightly, slowed my breathing, and remained completely still, hoping it would leave if it believed I was unconscious. Minutes passed in suffocating silence. Then I heard movement. Not footsteps, more like fabric shifting, extremely soft, almost inaudible, but unmistakable within the quiet. The sound wasn't coming from the corner anymore. It was closer, much closer. My heart pounded painfully because I understood. It hadn't left. It had approached. I couldn't endure it any longer. I opened my eyes. The corner was empty. Relief lasted only a second, because when my gaze shifted, I realized the bedroom doorway beside my bed was no longer empty.
Relief lasted only a second, because when my gaze shifted, I realized the bedroom doorway beside my bed was no longer empty. It was standing there, right beside my feet, closer than ever before, less than a meter away, positioned directly between me and the exit. And that's when a cold realization struck me. Every previous night, the figure had always stood at the farthest point of the room, in the corner, as if intentionally keeping a safe distance. But the moment I tried to ignore it, the moment I pretended it wasn't there, it crossed that boundary. It moved closer, as if its proximity was punishment for refusing to acknowledge it. And from that distance, I could feel its attention far more intensely than before. The terror I felt in that moment is impossible to properly describe. It was the feeling that the barrier between me and this thing had collapsed, and it now had easier access to my space. I don't remember what happened immediately after. I don't know if I slipped back into paralysis or blacked out from shock. My mind simply went blank. All I remember is the darkness and my heartbeat pounding violently in the silence of the room. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up. I did not wake up lying in bed. I woke up standing, in the middle of the room, facing directly toward the corner where it had first appeared. My body was stiff, and what sent a deep chill through me was that one of my hands was slightly raised, open, as if reaching towards someone, or something, that had just been standing in front of me. I rushed to turn on the light. The room looked normal, but the cold sensation in my lifted hand still felt real, like I had just touched something frozen. That was the breaking point, because I hadn't only seen it anymore. It had affected me physically. The line between sleep and waking, between me and it, felt completely blurred, and I could no longer trust my own mind. I moved out 2 days later. I couldn't stay there another minute.
I never saw the Hat Man again after leaving that apartment in Columbus. But the aftermath never truly left me. Years later, sometimes I still wake up at exactly 3 a.m., fully conscious, not from noise or dreams, but from a sudden, unexplainable feeling. The sensation that I just interrupted something that was about to happen, like stopping a film right before its worst scene.
I don't know what would have happened if I had stayed, but I know it wouldn't have been good. And now, no matter where I live, I never sleep facing a corner. Not because I'm afraid of seeing him again, but because I don't know what will happen if one night I wake up standing, and this time I don't look away. I'm afraid I might not come back. That is a permanent kind of fear. So that's the most disturbing experience I've ever had, and the reason I believe phenomena like the Hat Man may be more than just imagination or sleep paralysis. What about you? Have you ever experienced something similar? Paralysis, shadow figures, or the Hat Man? Let me know in the comments. If this story gave you chills, leave a like, subscribe for more true horror stories, and I'll see you in the next one.